Hey Samford fans, welcome into the 2021 Samford baseball season preview. I'm John McAfoose, happy to be joined by head coach Casey Dunn. Casey, appreciate you being here, and baseball right around the corner finally.
It's on top of us. It's cold, it's rainy, it's baseball season, man.
Well, you got really just about your whole team coming back from last year. Let's start with last year's seniors who are coming back for a fifth year. Talk a little bit about your discussions with them. I know you lost a couple. A guy like Connor Radcliffe's not coming back, but when you're talking to the guys that did return, was it a pretty quick and easy decision for most of them to come back?
You know, John, it was an easier decision than I thought it would be for most of them. You know, those guys were really excited about the opportunity to come back. You mentioned Connor's one. The couple other guys kind of in the same situation as him were guys that had already accepted jobs. You know, in Connor's case, he had already almost finished his MBA and had a job, so it just really didn't make sense for him. And a couple other guys were kind of in that same situation, but you know, we have two guys that came back, and Ryan Crockett and John Brocklebank, that had also already accepted jobs that pushed it back a year so they could come back and get into the MBA program, and Ryan's getting his master's in accounting. So even those guys made the decision to come back and keep trying to gain something academically as well.
Your weekend rotation really is one of the strengths of your team with Sam Strickland, Zach Hester, Jesse McCord. I know you had some injuries there last year with Hester being out and Jesse not pitching much, but if that trio is healthy, you got to feel like you can put them up with just about anybody.
No, it's encouraging. I mean, it really is. You know, when you look at what those three guys have done when they've been at the top of their game, they're all pitcher of the year candidates. You know, when those guys are at the best, they give us a good shot. And I guess the most encouraging part of that is, you mentioned last year, Zach made one start through 4 innings. Jesse made one start through 1 inning because he was on, just starting the rehab process coming back. So really, Sam was only the staple in what was a good start because you had Hamp Skinner and Jalen Long that could fill in those gaps for us. So, we really feel like we have 5 guys with starting experience that can give us a shot on the weekends.
Yeah, you mentioned Long and Skinner. Do you see them maybe taking up some midweek starts again as well this year?
You would think so. Looking at it, I think with Hamp being left-handed, I think Hamp has more of a possibility of kind of helping on the weekends as a left-handed arm out of the bullpen. Jalen's probably more of a typical starter, so I think him in that midweek role probably makes a little more sense. But both of those guys have a lot of experience. They've both pitched against good teams, big games. So we're encouraged by the depth of this group.
Well, the offense was certainly rolling last year as well, and it's led, of course, by Brooks Carlson, the SoCon preseason player of the year. You've also got a first-team selection in Sonny DeShera, a handful of second-team selections as well in Tyler McManus, Ayrton Schaefer, and Caden Dreyer. You got to feel pretty good about the depth, really, from top to bottom.
It's a veteran group for sure. I mean, obviously, Brooks and Sonny, those guys are going to hit. Regardless of how they start, at the end of the year, they're going to have good offensive years. And then there's a lot of experience. And, we'll see. We'll see how much I challenged our guys that, hey, man, for you guys that this is your 4th year, your 5th year, like, we need to see progress. We need to see some growth. And if those guys will take a step forward, as I feel like some of them have, then we do have a shot to have some depth in our lineup to where it's not just Brooks and Sonny in the middle, but, we can go 6, 7, 8 guys deep maybe in the lineup.
Defensively, any major changes that you foresee, or do you think most guys will kind of be where they were last year?
I really think the only, the only couple changes will kind of be in the corner of the outfield spots. And really, still a lot of familiar faces. Arrington's going to play a decent amount in left, but freshman Colton Ledbetter is a really special player that's a left-handed hitter, and I think you'll see him and Schaefer platoon a lot in left field, and then Ryan Crockett and Towns King kind of in right field as a left-right platoon that, worked fairly well for us last year. So, I think the only really other, I guess, kind of change would be, Will David will play third base. Last year he was kind of in a rotating role, but he's kind of anchored that spot for us and really makes us a much better defensive team with his athleticism over there. So, I think as we try to build around what we feel like is our strength and our pitching staff, having Will being a little more defensive at third should help us.
You mentioned Ledbetter. Any other freshmen that you see maybe getting some early playing time?
John, that's the tricky one, man. We've got a lot of guys that quite honestly should. Some guys that I think have played themselves into opportunities, but with all these older guys back, it's like, where do we get them in? Garrett Howe is probably the freshman infielder that's kind of stood out from what I think is a pretty good group of freshman infielders. And then I think, where you'll see the most freshman impact is probably a couple guys on the mound. Carson Hobbs is a guy that's going to log a lot of innings at the back end of games for us, and outside of Jesse, probably has the second best stuff on our team as a young kid. And then Blake Bortak is a really good left-handed arm. And, those two guys I think are definitely going to see good time on the mound. Blake's actually our fastest player, our best outfielder too. So he'll see some pinch running, kind of defensive use in the outfield, especially in left field. I think you'll see him hopefully finish off a lot of games out there. So, we've got those four guys that I think we'll see a good bit, but it's a pretty good freshman group. Those are going to be the challenge, I think, for us as coaches is how do we blend in what I think is some talented new guys with a very veteran team.
Looking at the non-conference schedule, some challenging opponents. You got a 3-game series at Florida. You got a 3-game series at Texas A&M. You got a midweek at Mississippi State. You got the home and home against Alabama and Auburn, with the home game being at the Hoover Met late in the season. But that Florida series is early, so you guys are going to get tested right off the bat.
John, it's man, you talking about scary as a coach, man. I think our kids are fired up, but the coach is looking at us like, man, they've got 2 first-rounders on the weekend, and the guy that's not a first-rounder was like a second-rounder last year that decided to come back, and it's like, man, what the heck's going on here? So, we're going to roll down there to face, what is a consensus #1 team. Not often in college baseball do you see everybody say this is the best team, but with their depth on the mound, the depth in their lineup, I think they could have as many 4 or 5 first-rounders in the next couple of years off that roster. So that'll be a challenge, but, it'll be exciting. We actually scheduled this series because this is the opening year of their new stadium. And, we were trying to play them. It's like, man, that'd be pretty cool to get down there in year 1 of a new park. So, that's exciting for our guys going out to A&M. Which I feel like Coach David on our staff was there for a regional back in his playing days. We kind of feel like that's one of the best environments in college baseball. Who knows with the COVID crowds how that'll be, but I think that'll be a great experience for our guys getting to play in a different venue that they're not familiar with, that is really one of the iconic college baseball stadiums. So we're excited about those trips. You mentioned we got 5 SEC teams, 11 games on the schedule. It's going to be a challenge for our guys, but I guess that's the people have asked about older guys coming back, and it's like, man, I'm just glad they came back in a year where the schedule's as crazy as it is. So, because these guys, they've competed in regionals, they've played in big environments, and I don't think we'll be overwhelmed by the atmospheres.
You guys picked to win the league by both the media and the coaches. Mercer is in second in both of those polls. What do you see from the rest of the league?
You look at the polls, and I guess you're glad you're picked because people think you're going to be good. But, I think it's probably fair in the sense that us and Mercer return the most. If you just look at it on paper, we're probably the 2 programs that brought back the most guys that were COVID seniors, and had a couple guys that probably would have been drafted that are back with the shortened draft. So I think it makes sense. Whether we are the top 2 or not, we'll see. I think UNC Greensboro will surprise a lot of people. It's a newer staff up there that inherited a good program, and I think went out and really brought in some quality transfer pieces. And it's a good coaching staff. They're guys that have been successful at and above our level. So I think that's going to be a program that may surprise some folks. And, Wofford's really done a good job in the last 3 or 4 years of solidifying their program. So I would expect them to have another good year. East Tennessee had a coaching change a few years ago that's, really enhanced what they're doing. Citadel, picked up a couple big-time transfer arms. I dang tip my hat to those guys. They went out and kind of found some guys at some lower levels to do the grad transfer. So I think the league as a whole is going to be much better. And, it's a new format this year, going to divisions and playing a 10-week season. So there's a lot of unknowns in that with, did we get the good draw in the divisions? Did somebody else get a better draw? We'll just have to see how that shapes out.
Coach, I appreciate your time. Can't wait to get it going.
Thanks, John.
Head coach Casey Dunn, I'm John McAfee. Samford baseball will open the season next Friday with a home series against UT Martin. That'll do it for the 2021 Samford baseball season preview.